Ren was a lonely and weak loser. He was kicked out of his guild of heroes precisely for being the weakest of the team, and every day of his life was filled with misery, until he met the most beautiful girl in the world who gave him more powerful abilities to defeat the most legendary monsters that roamed this world, and before he knew it, he created his own harem and became known as the greatest legendary adventurer. However, when he was just a messenger for his group of ungrateful heroes, the leader of the group then called Ren to tell him that he was going to be fired for being so useless, and Ren then wondered why they would want to get rid of him, but everyone screamed in his face saying that he was just a useless guy there, so Ren left his guild with a broken heart, feeling betrayed by his team promising never to return. When he was in the city, he wondered how he would survive since he didn't have a job. He was broke and had nowhere to go, but some children came to keep him company, and they then asked him to show them his powers as a tamer and using a temporary spell. Ren then summoned an eagle to the ground and made it bow down before everyone. All the children were very excited to see that and began to idolize Ren, saying that they admired him more than the other idiots who pretended to be heroes, and the kind words of the children then inspired Ren, who decided to put his skills into practice to become an adventurer. So when Ren is at the Adventurers Guild to begin his journey, he meets a very beautiful girl named Natalie, who explained to Ren that his job there would basically be to capture monsters and protect the citizens. She also began to explain the classification system for monsters and adventurers in that world, saying that Ren needed to go through a trial mission before qualifying as an adventurer, and that to do so he would then need to defeat a group of monsters. And after discovering that he was a beast tamer, Natalie began to fear for her safety and tried to make Ren give up that mission, but he refused to do so because he was determined to prove his worth. And as soon as he arrived, Ren then found a group of monsters. They were eating some stolen fruits. So he pulled out his blade, and running against them, he defeated them all and gathered his rune stones on a tree stump. When he put these stones in his bag, he heard a scream coming from the middle of the forest, and immediately he ran to see what was happening. And as soon as he got there, he found a girl scared because of a huge tiger, and before the tiger could launch its attack, Ren immediately attacked it. However, the tiger was a more powerful monster than Ren had imagined. And then with his titanium swords, the tiger ended up breaking Ren's knife in half. After that, then the beast turned its attention to Ren and was ready to end that adventurer project. However, the girl who was previously to be saved at that moment jumps high into the sky and lands a powerful kick right in the tiger's neck, eliminating him immediately with this blow. Then, after taking a closer look at the mysterious girl, Ren discovered that she was a member of a rare species of creatures that had class power in that world's creatures like were known as spirit. The impact of the tiger's death ended up draining all of the girl's energy and caused her to faint in Ren's arms. Since he had some food in his bag, he offered her some. At this point, she introduces herself to him as Tamed and immediately takes a liking to him and thanks him for saving her, as if what had happened wasn't exactly the opposite. But then Ren asks her why she was alone there in the forest. She says that she was on a journey to discover the wonders of the world. Seeing how he had a special ability as a beast tamer, Tamed believed that Ren could take control of her and share his powers. So Ren realized that he could finally become more powerful that way. After a dialogue as natural as daylight, Ren agrees and ends up becoming that girl's master. Then, to seal the pact between them, Ren cuts off his finger with one of his teeth, and a drop of blood then falls on her hand, now activating the binding spell between them. And then they recite their names, and after joining their hearts, they create a permanent bond between them. After this ritual is completed, Tamed gains a mark on her hand symbolizing the bond between her and Ren. After that, we are back at the Adventurers Guild, where Natalie congratulates Ren for passing the test and presents him with an identification card, officially assigning him the position of F-rank adventurer. He then receives 50 copper coins as a reward for his mission, but he considers this a small reward compared to the problems that could have happened to him. Then, in an attempt to encourage him, Natalie then suggested that he participate in more missions so that he could also earn a higher salary. And so, later at the reception, Ren told Tamed that he was now an official member of the Adventurers Guild, and she was very happy for him. But while they were trying to leave, an arrogant adventurer appeared and he was basically watching the movies of Ren's union with Tamed, and this man then wanted to take the Tamed for himself and challenged Ren to an arm wrestling duel, where whoever won would get Tamed, and Ren, being very intelligent, accepted this dispute, and so when they start to fight to see who will be Taneb's master, Ren, knowing that his 10 bars 10 is worth it, activates a new force and simply humiliates the guy, making him fall to the ground and everything else. His new strength left Ren himself impressed, but also caught the attention of Natalie and Tamed too, when she saw that she apologized if she was being undisciplined. But the truth is that Ren did not imagine that after having made the union with Tamed, even his physical status would end up evolving. So later that same day they went together to collect some herbs, and this was the first mission that Ren had received as a rank F adventurer. And if you found this mission of theirs boring, know that Tamed also thought so. She actually wanted something with more action, and Ren then explained to her that he had to first prove his worth before receiving more complex missions, and after saying those last words he began to control rabbits with his tamer skills, and he did this so that the rabbits would collect enough herbs to speed up their work. And in the middle of that boring mission, out of nowhere, they heard a scream and started running towards him. When they arrived at the place, they saw a group of bandits robbing an old man, but Ren attacked them. Determined to save the old man, he started punching and kicking the bandits several times, beating them brutally, and Tamed was impressed with the skill he had in martial arts. After all, the old man then thanks him, but also says that he was afraid that the bandits would come back after Ren left. And then Ren, to help the old man, decided to capture all those bandits to prevent them from following the old man after Ren left. But Tamed didn't like Ren's idea at all, because there were more than 100 bandits. And Ren then assured her that he had a plan perfect for that, and with the help of a squirrel, he then located the bandits' hideout, and he then began to plan an ambush for the bandits. And after that he asked Tamed to call the Order of Knights to join his attack, and after she left, Ren began to use his special ability, controlling an army of bees, to sting the bandits and put everyone there to sleep. And so when Tamed arrives with reinforcements, everyone is surprised to see that the bandits are already asleep, and they are impressed at how Ren alone had put all those bandits to sleep. Then suddenly the cave where they are begins to collapse, and out of nowhere 3 giant king lizards appear and begin to attack. One of the creatures tried to attack Ren, but he managed to knock it out with a single punch, and Tamed flew up and knocked out another king lizard with an incredible kick, with the cave collapsing. And with all that situation, Ren then ordered the adventurers to rescue the bandits from the cave. And he beat his chest, asking that only he and Tamed stay behind, because they would be enough to take care of it. And together they attacked another king lizard and launched a powerful attack against it. Then, after controlling the situation, Ren and Tamed leave the forest, and everyone starts to praise them. So when they return to the guild, Natalie then tells Ren that he received a promotion. Now he was no longer a rank F adventurer. He had been promoted to the position of rank E adventurer in recognition of the recent achievements he had had. So with the reward money, they already invested in new equipment and went to dinner together. The real problem came at bedtime, because the smart Ren had only managed to get a room for the 2 of them. He even offered to sleep outside the room, but since Tamed is very nice, she ended up taking pity on Ren and let him sleep with her in the room. Well, that's right. The hard life of anime protagonists once again. Anyway, weeks pass until one day Ren and Tamed are informed about a powerful bandit who was fighting against travelers who were trying to cross the bridge towards the city, and as the reward for this mission was quite attractive, Ren decided to accept it. And then when they arrived at the bridge, they saw a beautiful red dragon flying through the air, and this dragon, after landing, transformed into a beautiful woman. The woman then revealed that her name was Tania, and she informed them that they could not cross the bridge without first fighting her. Ren was then surprised to discover that the bandits were being defeated by that woman, and she admitted that yes, it was she who was defeating everyone, and she explained that the bridge was a training ground for her clan, and once again she warned that to cross the bridge it was necessary to defeat her. And so when the battle began, Tania threw a powerful punch at Ren, and he barely managed to defend himself. However, she was impressed by the boy's strength and released her fire breath. and with that Tanya accidentally ended up burning Taneb's tail. This was something that was very infuriating Taneb. And then the two began to fight, and while the girls fought, Ren took advantage of the time to make a temporary contract with the bird using his tamer powers. He asked the creature to call for reinforcements, and when the reinforcements arrived, Ren then led the attack against Tanya, filling her with poisons until she ended up being paralyzed. And so when the battle was over, Ren revealed that the birds he had made the contract with were known precisely for having a great poison capable of taking down any monster, and so after being defeated, Tanya was wondering what would happen to her, if she would be sold or if she would end up becoming someone's slave. But Ren, being very kind, promised to spare her. The only thing he asked was for her to join his team, and she accepted this willingly, being happy. Only Taneb, who got jealous and ended up not liking it very much anyway. Later that same day, they returned to the guild to claim their reward, and Natalie is surprised to learn that they defeated such a powerful monster. And after that, she set eyes on Tanya and started asking if that girl was a dragon. Ren immediately denied this information and took advantage of the gap to take the girls outside the guild so they wouldn't have to explain that Tanya was really a dragon, because this information would make everyone desperate and she could even be hunted. So later, Ren prepares to say goodbye to Tanya, but the girl starts to insist that she wants to stay by his side. So, just like he did with Taneb, Ren cuts his finger, and using his blood, he activates a spell, forming a permanent bond between him and Tanya. The team grew, and this was a good thing. The bad thing was that at bedtime, the girls started to fight over who would take care of Ren while he slept. And that's because he had left the bed 100% for them and went to sleep on the floor. Poor Ren. It looks like he's going to have to sleep a little with each of his monster girls. Well, let's leave that aside. The next day, they accept a mission to hunt slimes, and as they were not finding anything, Ren used his powers to enter the consciousness of a bird. At this moment, his physical body became unconscious, and Ren began to have the vision of the bird, and with that, he managed to find several slimes. And as slimes were perfect creatures to train, Ren took advantage of that situation to learn how to use his fire powers, and so on his first attempt he made a huge fireball that ended up leaving Tanya very surprised. But she then understood that after the bond created between them, just as had happened with Taneb sharing his physical strength with Ren, now Tanya was also sharing her dragon powers with the protagonist, and so Ren took advantage of the slimes there to learn more about the powers he had received from Tanya. And when they finished the training, they went to dinner. At that time, Tanya took the opportunity to ask Ren how he had become a tamer, and he then revealed that when he was younger, his parents were beast tamers, which made him grow up practicing this type of magic. And he said that one day, after practicing late at night, he realized that his village was on fire and ran home. But when he got there, he discovered that everyone had been murdered by monsters, and he luckily ended up being rescued the next morning by the city knights, who allowed Ren to stay indoors working until he grew up. And so eventually he joined the heroes group, where he hoped to get some recognition, but what he got was only humiliation, and he ended up just serving as a pack mule for the group. And then when Ren started to feel pathetic about his dark past, Kanabi held his hands and told him that he was no longer the person he used to be, and that she was proud of him for always trying to help and save everyone he could. Tanya also held Ren's hand and said that he was too kind, but that she liked that about her new master. However, they were both upset because of everything that happened in the king's old guild of heroes and confessed that they wanted to destroy it. But the king didn't care about cultivating these feelings of hatred because he was satisfied with his new life and his new friends. So the next day things went back to normal, and they set off on a new mission, burning and killing orcs. Tanya thought that would be easy, so she ran in search of more orcs, and after finding some of them, Kanabi threw a rock at an orc, breaking its head. Immediately, one of the other orcs attacked Tanya, but she countered the attack with her tail and destroyed the orc instantly. After picking up a rune stone, she approached another one, ready to burn it using its flames, but the creature grabbed her ankle and pulled her to the ground. However, she was quick and ended up burning the creature's face. She took advantage of the moment afterwards to rest from exhaustion, but another orc came flying towards him from behind, but luckily Ren was smart and appeared just in time, which allowed Kanabi to kick the creature in the face. When the fight ends, Ren heals Tanya's wound with magic and asks her not to feel bad when she notices the guilty expression on her face, and later that day Kanabi told Ren that Tanya was blaming herself for the knife wound, and so to make sure she wouldn't hurt Ren anymore, she decided to stay away from the team for a while. So Ren decided to go after his dragon girl, and as soon as he found her, she started apologizing to him, saying that she was responsible for the injury. However, he didn't mind it and told her to just be more careful next time. And when he told her that Kanabi was really worried about her too, Kanabi immediately joined them and said that Tanya was an important part of the team. And then after that, the whole group is hugging each other, all emotional, so cute. So later that night, while Ren was sleeping, Tanya watched him silently and realized that she might be feeling something for her master, but since she admired him so much, she thought she just wanted to be by his side forever. And several weeks later, during another mission, they encountered members of the heroes group, which brought a blast from Ren's past, and after a minute of tense exchanges of glances, Ren started to walk away with his girls, but Arius, the former leader of the group, started to tease him, calling him a useless loser, and said that he had never deserved a place by their side. After having heard enough about his master, Tanya told Arius to stop insulting his master, but Arius kept calling Ren useless, and after finding out that Tanya was a dragon and that Tamed was a cat spirit, Arius then wondered why they were following Ren instead of him, and when Tamed told him that Ren was their friend, Arius then said that she was lying to him. Ren should be their slave because he had never really seen Ren as anything other than a useless, and these words did not please Ren's harem at all. So Tamed once again stated to Arius that Ren was indeed their master, and upon hearing this, he told Ren that he would like to have him back on the team, because as his last mission in a mysterious forest had ended unsuccessfully, he wanted Ren to explore the road using his ability. But Ren interrupted and said that he would never join that group again, and then Arius, irritated by the rejection, began to insult Ren again, saying that his invitation was a great honor for someone as useless as him, and the remaining heroes also began to insult Ren, calling him a weak and pathetic loser, saying that he had no other place in this world other than being a beast of burden. And upon hearing these words, the anger inside Ren grew, but he decided to simply leave instead of fighting. However, Nina called him back, saying that they should find the shield of truth in the mysterious forest before the Demon King took control of that world, and with the same monsters that destroyed his village years ago. Ren didn't want to see the world destroyed, so he agreed to help them find the shield. However, they continued to insult him, calling him slow and an idiot boy who only pretended to be a man. However, when they were finally leaving, Kanabi and Tanya began to ask them to apologize to Ren. After the group refused to apologize, Tanya's eyes began to shine with hatred, and she began to demand that they beg on their knees for forgiveness. Otherwise, she would destroy them right there. Arius also became enraged upon hearing that and grabbed Ren's shirt. He then called Ren a coward once again and said that he should learn to tame his females better. After hearing Arius call Kanabi and Tanya as if they were pets, Ren finally honored what he had between his legs and gave Arius a good punch in the face, which left everyone there shocked because for them, Ren was just a coward. And Ren then told Arius that it was better for him to never refer to his friends as if they were animals again. And then Arius then stood up and challenged Ren to a duel, and Ren accepted the challenge. And then they split into pairs to fight. Kanabi started fighting against a bald slacker named Agath. He was one of those who had humiliated Ren, so Kanabi was blood in her eyes, and when she went after Agath, she immediately surprised him with her speed, with her physical and thunderous strength. She landed several blows on the bald man, who couldn't even react with her sword. Every blow he tried to land on her, she dodged with ease, completely cornered Agath, then decided to use a fire magic to cover his sword with flames. But it was a lot of concentration for nothing because Kanabi soon kicked his sword, and the bald man had already realized that he wasn't going to be able to beat Kanabi no way, and then he went and did the biggest stupidity he could. He asked her why she was following someone as weak as Ren. And then she replied that Ren was a much better person than all those wannabe heroes, and so to defend the honor of the owner of her errand, Kanabi went and kicked the bald guy, making him fly away from there and crashing into a tree, giving the first victory to Ren's group. Because yes, if one day you find a wounded spirit, never mess with his master, or you've already seen what will happen. Well, meanwhile, at the same time, Tanya was facing Nina and Lin, but in her head she expected to fight Arius since they hardly seemed worthy opponents to her, and this was something that left Nina and Lin simply possessed, so they decided to attack Tanya together, and well, they prepared a really powerful blow. But when they tried to attack, Tanya eliminated the blow just by snapping her fingers, and after seeing the expression of horror and fear on her opponent's faces when she did that, Tanya then started laughing in their faces and then tried to prepare another attack to fire at her. But once again the dragon girl made the attacks disappear as if it were nothing. And Tanya then explained that she had a magical power that was capable of eliminating any spell without difficulty. But even with her explaining this, they continued trying to attack her with spells. And then she stood there snapping her fingers and making everything disappear. After that, when Nina and Lin were already exhausted after casting so many spells on Tanya, Tanya finally decided to stop playing around and prepared her own attack. Then she conjured a magic ring under her feet, causing the clouds to darken. As magic circles appeared in the sky, giant spikes began to come out of these magic rings and were ready to be thrown at Nina and Lin, who immediately panicked and began to cry for mercy. After scaring the girls until they fainted, Tanya then cancelled her attack and left them there unconscious. The fight wasn't even funny. Meanwhile, the lazy Arius was still mocking the king, but the king wasn't in the mood to talk anymore. So he went and punched him in the face again. This made Arius crazy, so he drew his sword and the two began to fight. Arius went after the king, but he was much faster than Arius remembered, and he could dodge his attacks with ease, and when Arius tried to attack him with his sword, the king dodged and punched him right in the stomach, and then the king revealed that he was much stronger. Finally, he had awakened his powers, and he then recognized that all of that was thanks to his friendship with Kanabi and Tanya. But even hearing all of that, Arius continued to refuse to lose to his former workhorse, and he then conjured spells to start attacking lightning against Ren, but fortunately Ren had trained Tanya's techniques, so he countered the attack by blocking it with a fireball, and also while they were working together, Ren had taken advantage of the time to study Arius' movements, who on the other hand was always underestimating Ren, so in that battle Arius was having a hard time. He went after Ren, trying hit him with a thunderbolt in his hand, but in the middle of the way his body froze. He didn't understand anything of what was happening. But then Ren showed him that he had been stung by a bee, but not by any bee. He had been stung at the beginning of the battle by a poisonous bee that had been conjured by Ren, so basically since the beginning of the fight Ren knew it was a matter of time until the poison had an effect on Arius. When Arius realized what was happening, he started to apologize to Ren. But Ren wasn't in the mood for talking, so he went and punched him in the face again. After that, Tanya and Tamed, who had also won their battles, arrived happily and hugged Ren, and so when the old guild of heroes that Ren was part of were all kneeling before them, Tanya made them apologize to their master more than once, and well, since they had already taken a beating, there was nothing else they could do. They apologized, so they then revealed to Ren that the shield they needed to defeat the Demon King was lost deep in the forest, and that powerful monsters were guarding this shield, but Arius said that with Ren's level of power, he would be able to save the shield. After being rude to the guy, he asked for Ren's help. Tamed didn't like that at all and went straight to kicking him. However, unlike his monster servants, Ren was a good guy, so he told them to calm down because he had already decided that he wanted to find the shield. After that, each group went their own way. Ren went to the forest with his girls, but when they got there, they realized that the map they had was useless because there was no trail or any indication that they were on the right path in the forest. So basically, the map had no reference that would really help them. Fortunately, Unfortunately, Ren had his beast tamer powers, so he transferred his mind to a little blue bird. While his body remained unconscious in the girl's laps, Ren took the bird's body and flew high to find the best route for them to follow. After that, he returned to his body, and so they started walking in the direction he saw. But after some time walking, they realized that they were walking in cycles, and they realized this after passing by a yellow stone. A few times they then began to suspect that someone might be using a spell to make them get lost in the forest, so Tanya cast a search spell to understand what was happening, and Tanya's magic then led them to a gigantic tree. And Tanya then revealed that it was that tree that was bewitching them, making them walk in circles, and she also said that to end that spell it was necessary for them to destroy the tree, and when Kanabi punched the tree, everyone began to hear a voice from inside the tree, and the mysterious voice was ordering them to leave the forest immediately, and while they were still surprised, suddenly a young fairy came out of the tree moving towards them, and it is then revealed that the fairies hid for 200 years after an intense war that they fought against humans. And the king then wondered why a fairy was revealing herself to him like this, but before he could finish saying his words, the fairy started screaming, telling them to go away again, and she also started threatening to destroy all of them there, as if they were cockroaches, and well, the little fairy ended up being quite scary, so they ran away from there immediately, and then when they stopped to breathe, the king said that there was something strange with that fairy, and he was determined to go back to the tree to find out what it was. But Tanya didn't like the idea at all, and said that it was a terrible thing to do since their spell had taken her to the tree. She thought that the shield could be hidden inside it, and so she suggested that Kanabi destroy the tree while she would distract the fairy with her own magic. But the king didn't like that idea very much either. He said he would rather try to talk to the fairy again, and so even though it could be a great risk, they then returned to the magic tree. And as soon as they got there, the king introduced himself to the fairy, telling her that he just wanted to talk to her. But she told him once more that he would leave, and the king then remembered having found a wounded wolf years before. And he remembered that this wolf was ready to devour him, but after taking care of his wound, the wolf became friends with the king, so the king was determined to show some kindness to the fairy in order to gain her trust, and as she summoned magic arrows threatening to finish him off right there, he then assured her that he did not want to fight with her, and when Kanabi and Tanya tried to get between him and the fairy, the king asked them to step back and stay behind him so he could deal with the situation his way. And although the fairy liked the king's gesture, she still shot her arrows at him, tearing his clothes and cutting his face. However, he stood firm and determined not to run away, and the king told the fairy that he just wanted to ask her some questions and reinforced once again that he had no intention of hurting her, but that she thought he was there trying to trick her, so she shot more arrows at him. Only this time Kanabi and Tanya got in the way, and they started telling the fairy that the king was a kind human, and that she could trust him because he wasn't like the others. And so when the fairy realized that that mysterious boy was being defended by two monster girls, she started to think that the king could really be someone different, and the fairy finally introduced herself. Her name was Sora, and she decided to have a talk with the king, and then when they started talking, the king told Sora that he was there looking for the Shield of Truth, and Sora then confirmed to him that the shield was indeed in the forest, but unlike what Arius had said, there was no monster protecting the shield. And Sora then revealed that only the fairies protected the shield, and she also revealed that the spell used in the forest was only to prevent humans from finding the fairy village, and that she didn't care if the king took the shield away with him. So after that she disappeared for a moment and then returned with the shield in her hands. She then handed the shield to the king and the group prepared to leave, but that was too easy, and then the king took a good look at the fairy and asked Sora what she had, because according to him Sora seemed worried about something, and he then offered to help her with anything in exchange for her good gesture of giving him the shield. And well, initially the cute fairy didn't want to say what was bothering her, but after they insisted so much, she finally revealed what was bothering her, and she said that her sister had been captured by the Demon King, and according to her, this would have happened in a short period in which she and her sister had been outside the fairy village. And Sora then explained that she saw her sister being captured before her eyes, and she would even have tried to fight the creature that captured her sister, but no type of magic seemed to affect that monster, and as that monster revealed that it intended to use Sora to break down the magical barriers that protected the fairy village, Sora then started to run away from it and went to ask for help from the village chief. However, when the village chief learned that her sister had been captured by a monster that was immune to spells, he told Sora to leave her sister behind and forget about her. Sora said that was what was making her so restless. After hearing the story, the king said that Sora's sister had been captured by a shadow knight, and that the creature was a sea creature, but that she couldn't be hit by spells. That's why Sora hadn't been able to do anything against the creature from the beginning. But he reassured her, saying that she could rest assured that he would help her. Sora said that the monster that had captured her sister was threatening to eliminate her that night, so the group knew they couldn't waste time. So the heroes went out to hunt the Shadow Knight. Well, it didn't take long for them to find the creature, and there, hanging next to the monster, was Luna, Sora's twin sister, since they had already found their target and who they wanted to rescue. It seemed like everything was fine, but when the fight started, they saw the size of the problem they were in. The king tried to shoot magic balls, fire against the monster, but the attack did not cause any damage to the Shadow Knight, and as the magic did not work, Tamed went for brute force, giving a kick to the Night King's head, then took advantage of the moment to punch the knight. But after this sequence of blows, all he did was retreat a little, and then soon the knight realized that everyone was there to try to rescue Luna. And to get rid of his problem, he then threw his sword towards Luna to try to split her in half, and he would have succeeded if at the last moment Tanya had not gotten in the middle of the attack and blocked the sword with her wings. So after freeing Luna, Tanya began to fly away, but the Shadow Knight was already ready to go after them, so at that moment, to stop him, Tanya and Ren stood in front of the monster. The Shadow Knight then conjured a powerful wind from his sword that destroyed trees in front of him, so Ren asked Tamed to attack him with another blow, while he would try to distract him with a spell. Tamed then nodded, confirming that he had understood Ren's plan. The boy then jumped up and took advantage of the moment to conjure an army of bees. The bees went after the knight and began to distract him while he tried to cut them with his sword, which allowed Ren to cast another spell on Tamed. This spell of his ended up giving her a mysterious, bright power. Immediately, she began to run towards the knight. When she struck a fatal blow to his chest, a hole opened in the creature's heart. After that, the hideous monster disappeared instantly. After the victory, Ren explained to Tamed that his spell had temporarily increased her powers, which made her attacks even more lethal. After that, Tanya appeared before them. She said that Luna was still alive, but was unconscious. However, shortly after, Luna began to wake up and asked who they were. The king told her that they were there to save her because her sister was very worried about her. After returning to the magic tree, Luna and Sora were happy to see each other again, but Sora revealed that they were there to save her. That after being abandoned by their own people, she and Luna could no longer stay in the forest, and so Tamed gave the idea for the fairies to continue following their journey with Ren and them, and well, this idea pleased both Luna and Sora a lot, and so the fairies agreed to be part of Ren's team, and so once again Ren used his bond magic, and just as he had done with Tanya and Tamed, when the magic was completed, Sora and Luna were now officially part of Ren's team of beasts. So the next day, Ren and his group are back at the hero's base, and there he shows his old team that he had gotten the Shield of Truth, but Arius couldn't believe it, and asked how Ren had gotten the shield so fast. He even said that that shield must be some fake copy, but as Ren didn't want to waste time arguing, he told Arius to use a verification technique to see if the shield was real or not, and that's what they did, and then they confirmed that it was the real shield, which ended up leaving everyone in Ren's old guild quite dumbfounded. So, even though he was upset, Arius paid Ren for having recovered the shield, and then even Agate decided to come and tell him that he missed him and wanted him to return to the guild. But Ren said that he was very calm with his new life, and with his 4 servants, and that he didn't need anyone anymore, and so Ren left there with his team. He just didn't know that he left behind the hatred of Arius, who promised to destroy him anyway. So later that day, one of the girls asks Ren if only the hero was the only one who could fight the Demon King, and then Ren begins to tell them the story of the first hero, and he says that many years before, after the Demon King put the entire world under his spell, the first hero visited the gods, and after receiving their blood as a gift, he finally returned and managed to defeat the king. Demon freeing everyone. However, he believed that no one could defeat the Demon King without having the blood of the gods, but Sora then wondered why he had not become the hero of that world, especially since he already had unique powers that came from his magical bond with his servants, and then Ren responds that it was always his life's dream to become a hero. However, he tells Sora that he needed more time to think about it. And then the next day, while having breakfast, Tanya told Ren to buy a new weapon since his had been lost in the last attack when he rescued the Tamed from the killer tiger, and so later the group went to the weapon store, and while they were there looking for a new weapon for Ren, suddenly a young man entered the store and asked to buy the most expensive sword of all, and after the store owner gave him a beautiful golden sword, he then practiced some blows and went to fight some monsters, but Ren decided to ask the store owner why he would have sold the man a cheap sword, since that sword he had sold would break in just one battle, and the shop owner was then impressed to see how Ren was an expert when it came to weapons, and decided that he would then make an extremely powerful sword for Ren. But for that he needed Ren to find some crystals for him, because the crystals he had for his own production were disappearing from his cave, and Ren then began to find that whole conversation very strange and offered to help the shop owner find out who was stealing his minerals. And so when the shop owner asked how much it would cost him that, Ren replied that he would not charge anything, he would just like to do that in exchange for the blacksmith's service. The blacksmith thanked Ren for his kindness, so later that same day the team headed to the cave, and so after a few hours of walking the group arrived at the cave. Ren noticed a strange bird flying in the sky and tried to tell the girls, but before he could tell them anything, two men came out of the cave looking for them, and in the hopes of finding out what was being done there in the cave, Ren then ordered Tamed and Tanya to capture the men for him. However, Sora and Luna decided to search the men's memories, and when they did so they discovered that the crystals were being stolen from the cave by a group of adventurers. After hearing that, Ren decided that they would enter the cave, and when he realized the birds were still spying on them from above, and so Ren had an idea of who the adventurer was. But as they descended the cave, a large flame began to fly right towards them, and so Sora and Luna immediately created a magic circle that blocked the flames as if it were a shield, so the thieves prepared another attack. But Luna and Sora invoked another powerful spell that tied the thieves in magic rings, which caused their fire to go out. Meanwhile, two other thieves fired arrows at Tanya, but they melted with their flames. And so Tamed immediately kicked one of the thieves in the head before he could fire another arrow, while Tanya knocked down the second thief with her tail. And after Tamed tied up the men, finally only the beast tamer was left, who was using birds to follow them, and then Ren was left to face him, and so the beast tamer drew his blade to finish everyone there, and when he attacked Ren, Ren blocked his attack and punched him deep in the belly. However, soon the beast tamer recovered, and he immediately cast a spell summoning a huge rank B monster that came flying into the cave, and then we see that the monster summoned by the other tamer was simply a minotaur, and the tamer began to say that he had found that monster when he was still young, and that since then he had been taming the creature so that it would do whatever he wanted, and so the minotaur set out to finish off Ren, and he was really very fast. Ren was having trouble dodging his attacks, and everything only got worse when suddenly a rock fell on Ren's shoulder. It really looked like the Ren wouldn't stand a chance against that rank B minotaur, and then when the creature went for the final attack, luckily Kanabi arrived just in time and saved Ren. She informed her master that everyone else was already safely outside the cave. Ren was relieved to hear that, and then the two of them together began to face the minotaur, while the other beast tamer said that he would finish off Ren and all his girls there so that his secrets would never leak out. But at that moment, Ren decided to test his new skills as a conjurer. He wanted to test how much he had evolved individually, and for that he cast a spell against the Minotaur. The other beast tamer didn't understand anything. Then suddenly the Minotaur turned to him. The creature seemed ready to attack him, and he didn't understand anything. But then it was explained that Ren managed to overwrite his domain, and that he was now the new master of that Minotaur, and so when the other tamer tried to regain control again, he saw that the magic circle related to his bond and that of the Minotaur had disappeared from his hand, indicating that there was no longer any relationship between them, and now that Ren was the new master of the Minotaur, he could have used the creature to extinguish his former master. But as he is very kind, he only extinguished the Minotaur itself. And so after defeating and humiliating the other beast tamer, Ren returned to the old blacksmith shop and told him that the others were stealing his crystals because he was selling poor quality pieces to the adventurers. So after that, the blacksmith decided that he would make good quality swords for everyone who wanted to buy. And he asked what kind of weapon Ren would like him to make for him. And then Ren replied that he would like to have a dagger and also a gauntlet. And so a few days later, Luna and Sora decided to ask Ren if he had gained any new abilities since the magical bond with them, but he answered the truth and said that he had not received any new abilities yet, and this ended up making the fairies very sad. But Ren said he was happy to having them on the team. After that, everything was fine, and they started walking to lunch, but on the way they met a very smart and arrogant young man named Edgar. He was a member of the nobility and demanded to know Luna and Sora's names, saying that he would take them home and become their new master. After Luna asked him to leave them alone, Edgar then snapped his fingers and ordered his knights to surround her. However, Ren managed to knock down all of his knights with a single punch. Then, realizing that he was losing, Edgar ordered his knights to keep all the people there in captivity, threatening all of them if he didn't have Luna and Sora for himself at that moment. Sora offers to save the people of the village with his magic, but Ren refuses her help, saying that he is afraid that people will find out that she is a fairy and start running away without having many alternatives. Ren then decides to try a new magic. He then conjures magic circles all over the sky and flames begin to come out of them, which are then fired at Edgar's knights. And then he ends up being defeated, and soon Ren discovers that the new magic he used had come precisely from his connection with Luna and Sora. So yes, he had learned a new skill after creating a connection with the fairies. Well, after that, peace is restored in the village. Then Ren points his sword at Edgar, and he then orders the blonde playboy to leave. Since Edgar had already been humiliated and his knights couldn't tank Ren, he went and left anyway. So the villagers began to greet Ren, calling him a hero. Later, when the group met again in the room, Ren said that Edgar was known for taking girls to his castle. Mysteriously, after the girls entered the castle, no one knew what was happening to them. When she heard that, Tanya said that they should then invade the castle to free all the hostage girls. But Ren said that he couldn't do that. After all, Edgar was the son of a nobleman, so if he did that, he would be putting not only himself at risk, but all of them. However, the girls insisted that that was the right thing to do. And then the next day the group went to the guild to ask for Edgar to be arrested because he was bothering several innocent girls out there. But when they did that, suddenly some knights appeared behind them, and since all the knights worked for Edgar's father, everyone there started saying that Ren was lying and that Edgar didn't bother anyone, that in fact he was like a saint. So without success, Ren and Tamed started walking down the street, and so they found a young girl named Stella, and it is revealed that she was the vice captain of the army, and after she introduced herself, she said that she needed their help to arrest Edgar because according to her, things would only get better when Edgar and his henchmen were behind bars, and despite agreeing with that, Ren thought that it was a little convenient and started to wonder if Stella couldn't be setting a trap for him. But Tamed then told him that they needed to help the girl, because that's what Ren did, he helped people, and upon hearing Taneb's words, Ren agreed to help Stella, and together they began to plan an ambush for the knights, and when everything was ready, they began to lure some corrupt knights to an abandoned warehouse, and after the knights entered, then arrows flew in the air, and almost all of them fell to the ground lifeless, until the corrupt captain realized that it was an ambush, and ordered his soldiers to escape from there, but they couldn't do it because Luna and Sora used their fairy magic to seal the door, making it impossible for anyone to escape from that room. And so then begins the battle of Vice Captain Stella against her former corrupt captain. The captain is confident that he will be able to crush Stella, but she surprises him with her quick movements. She then lands a blow and sends the captain's sword flying through the air, but he takes advantage of this moment to hit her with a punch in the face. The blow makes Stella fly away. He then calls her a stupid and naive girl, and when the two go for the last blow, Stella gets the best of it, and so her captain ends up falling to the ground in front of her. Then, at this moment, the scene cuts, and we see that Arius is at the window of Edgar's room in the castle. He then hands an enchanted ring to Edgar and says that Edgar must use this ring to eliminate Ren. So after the ambush against the captain was a success, Ren's girls along with Stella's knights march towards the castle. However, as soon as they get there, some knights are sent to battle them. Meanwhile, Ren took the opportunity to sneak into the castle with Luna and Sora. They then used their identification magic to find out where the girls were. After a while searching for Edgar's victims, Ren finally found a fox girl locked in a cell. Since he couldn't miss the chance to rescue a monster girl, he picked her up and left with her. So when Ren was preparing to leave the castle without being noticed, he suddenly found all his men at the entrance to the castle, and all the girls were dying of jealousy when they saw that he was carrying another monster girl with him. But Stella said that they didn't have time to fight over a male, because if they took too long there, Edgar would be able to escape, and so right at that moment Edgar's father appeared at the top of the stairs carrying a chest full of gold. Upon seeing the old man, Ren then used his gauntlet and threw some wires to trap him. Then Edgar himself entered the room and, using the ring that he had received from the diaries, prepared an attack to surprise Ren. Then suddenly, a giant gravedigger appeared before them from that magic ring. The gravedigger then used his scythe to strike Ren right in the chest, but Ren ended up not being hit by that blow, and Edgar didn't understand anything. In fact, Ren himself didn't understand how he hadn't been hit. Then Luna explained to him that Ren had learned a new magic, and that this new magic was also from the fairies, and, according to them, this new magic acquired by Ren could protect him from attacks from dark creatures. As that Reaper there seemed like everything was over, and that would be the end of Edgar, but suddenly the ring he received began to glow and a purple smoke came out, and then suddenly Edgar began to have his body absorbed by the smoke. Ren tried to use his fire magic to save him, but all of this was in vain. And then from where Edgar was, suddenly a gigantic demon king appeared, and as soon as he saw the monster, Ren then realized that that demon king was the same one who had destroyed his village in the past, and now he had returned to cause even more destruction. Ren and the girls then tried to stop the monster, but he was very powerful and flew out of the castle. They went after the monster and managed to bring him back to the ground using magic. They even tried to trap that monster, but nothing seemed capable of stopping him. He destroyed the chains very easily, and to make the situation even worse, the Demon King had the ability to summon other demons. And then he began to summon an army of demons to destroy the city with him. Ren and the girls were even able to defeat those demons. The problem is that the Demon King kept summoning them more and more. Worst of all, not even the fairy magic used by Luna and Sora seemed to be able to defeat that monster. In fact, he never seemed to suffer any damage. Kanabi tried to use her physics to finish off the monster, but she didn't even scratch him. Then Tanya tried to attack the demon with her flames, but using her magic, the demon pushed Tanya's flames back to her. In the middle of all that chaos, Luna and Sora were in charge of taking the civilians as far as they could. The king then used his tamer magic to amplify Tanya's and Kanabi's powers, so they began to shine and had their powers amplified. They went to attack the Demon King, but not even then could they hurt that creature. Suddenly, some adventurers arrive to help, and they begin to face the lesser demons, but all seems lost because the king doesn't do anything. the slightest idea of how he could defeat that monster, since the Demon King was now flying, and he couldn't even get close to him and right at that time. Then the fox girl who was saved by the king appears, and she then reveals that she has a teleportation ability that can be very useful upon hearing that, so the king already comes up with a plan and puts the girl on his back and sets off to attack the Demon King. The demon tries to shoot at him several times, but he escapes every time, and so while he is running across the rooftops and dodging the Demon King's attacks, suddenly the fox girl activates her magic, and so the king teleports himself, coming face to face with the Demon King, and he then takes the opportunity to start absorbing the Demon King's powers. However, as the demonic magic enters his body, he is about to become unconscious, and just as he was about to give up, he began to remember his wives and how each of them was willing to sacrifice themselves for him or for his dreams. Inspired by these thoughts, the king was then able to absorb the demonic power, and he used that power to make all the demons under the command of the Demon King now become demons under his own command, because remember what he did to the Minotaur on top of the other tamer. The king was now so much more powerful that he did the same thing on top of the Demon King himself. At this moment, the king raised his arm high and authorized his demons to now attack the Demon King, and as in the battle several demons had been conjured, there was power there even to eliminate a Demon King himself, and so with the attack of those who were previously his servants, the Demon King was destroyed, and in this way the king became the hero he always dreamed of being and saved the entire city, doing what he could not do for his village in the past. And after he became 7 days after that hard-earned victory, the king goes and turns the fox girl into one of his wives, also making the same pact he made with all the others. And since there was no more room for anyone in his bed, he decided to buy a new house. The problem is that he bought a house that was haunted by a ghost girl, and at first this ghost girl didn't want to let anyone sleep there, but she also ended up surrendering to the king's charms over time, and she also joins his errand just for a change. And so, at the end of the anime, the king is living in his new house after becoming the hero he dreamed of. But what he didn't dream of is that in the end he would actually end up having 6 wives, including, now, a ghost girl, as a surprise at the end.